Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, October 25th, 2021, and I wanted to bring this video to you guys, and I'm going to make a video tomorrow, a pretty long video, or I might go live. I'm not exactly sure yet, because I have some stuff I want to show you guys, but I want to go live, because I haven't made a video in a couple days, but I'll feel it out, and I'll see what I want to do about that. Make sure we're recording here. Alright, everything looks good. As you can see here, I brought this article up. Now, this is from the Washington Post, and, you know, their little saying is, democracy dies in darkness. Which, okay, yeah, you know that. Propaganda arm of the state. Washington Post was actually the first media publisher to be named by David Rockefeller whenever that 1991 audio was leaked from the Bilderberg Conference, where he said that they are thankful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications who have respected our meetings, and their directors have attended our meetings for over 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world had we been subject to the bright lights of publicity, but now the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward world government. I'm actually going to find that audio clip, and I'm going to record it, and I'm going to post it right after I make this video, because I really want you guys to see that too. And yes, so you're getting your daily dose of dissecting propaganda on this page from me today. So, longer, more frequent outages afflict the U.S. power grid as states fail to prepare for climate change. Right again, guys, right again we are, where we said that this is going to shift straight to a climate change mindset with the climate lockdowns, shutting down the power grid, and this is basically what they're telling us, that they're going to be shutting down the power grid, and they already have it lined up, and, well, this is just the garbage that they're telling the sheep, so the sheep, well, I'm just going to get into it. State officials are reluctant to ask ratepayers to foot the bill for investments experts say are needed to fortify the grid against increasingly severe weather. Yeah, that's what'll do it. Increasingly severe weather. It's interesting. Every time a storm lashes the Carolina coast, the power lines on Tanya's Gray's street go down, cutting her lights and air conditioning. After Hurricane Florence in 2018, Gray went 3 days with no way to refrigerate medicine for her multiple sclerosis or pump the floodwater out of her basement. Quote, "Florence was hell," said Gray, 61, a marketing account manager and Wilmington native who finds herself increasingly frustrated by the city's vulnerability. Quote, "We've had storms long enough in Wilmington in this particular area that all power lines should have been underground by now. We know we're going to get hit." And they always start with something like this that people can agree with. Yes, of course, power lines should have been underground a long time ago. But that's not what they're going to be doing when they push pieces like this. They don't push pieces like this so you can get better infrastructure. If they wanted to put better infrastructure in for us, they would have done it a long time ago when they had the technology developed. Which our current infrastructure, well, the technology for that is what? Over 100 years old now? Across the nation, severe weather fueled by climate change. Yeah, severe weather fueled by climate change. Is that what they're calling DARPA's, geoengineering programs now? Fueled by climate change? Is pushing aging electrical systems past their limits, often with deadly results. I would say, actually, because it's not an aging electrical system, it's an aged and almost destroyed on purpose electrical system. Last year, the average American home endured more than 8 hours without power, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, more than double the outage time 5 years ago. Oh yes, and all this is just because of severe weather, right? There's been severe weather for a long, long time, and we've never had problems like this. And they say, well, climate change is enhancing these storms and making them more powerful. Like, no, you are doing that with frequencies. So, there's that. Increased power outages nationwide, often sparked by climate disasters. Change in average annual power outage minutes per utility customer 2013-2015 compared to 2018-2020 3-year average. And you can look at this chart here if you are interested to see where your state lies on the Ohio. Looks like it's in the 100 column. This year alone, a wave of abnormally severe winter storms caused a disastrous power failure in Texas. We all know what happened there, leaving millions of homes in the dark, sometimes for days, and at least 200 dead. Power outages caused by Hurricane Ida contributed to at least 14 deaths in Louisiana, as some of the poorest parts of the state suffered through weeks of 90-degree heat without air conditioning. Check this out. Lights out. Living without power in the wake of Hurricane Ida. Interesting they threw that in there, because that's what it's getting ready to be. Lights out, and all of their stuff is protected. You guys gotta understand that, because a lot of people say, "Oh, Austin, they can't do that for a long period of time because they're gonna have their stuff working." Their stuff is gonna work, believe it or not. It is most definitely going to work, and you better believe it. You better believe their stuff is protected. They EMP proofed all of their stuff a long time ago. They don't even have to use what we use. As storms grow fiercer and more frequent, here comes propaganda alert. We are now treading into territory with propaganda. So, do not allow your mind to be pulled in from the words in this article. As storms grow fiercer and more frequent, I would say more fierce and more frequent, but we'll say fiercer. That's what he wrote. Environmental groups are pushing states to completely reimagine the electrical grid, incorporating more batteries, renewable energy sources, and localized systems known as microgrids, which they say could reduce the incidence of wide-scale outages. Microgrids? Huh. Kind of seems like they're going to have something like that, right? Well, how many G5 towers did they put up and so close together? And again, we're seeing Great Reset, Build Back Better, New Normal language here with the reimagine. Klaus Schwab uses that all the time. Reimagine, reshape, and reorder our world in a more inclusive manner with, whatever. Utility companies have proposed their own storm-proofing measures, including burying power lines underground. Yeah, the utility companies will get in the way of, because utility companies, they might not want to go this route, but they will be among those businesses that are left in the past because they won't have a say once they turn the lights out. State regulators largely have rejected these ideas, citing pressure to keep energy rates affordable. Of $15.7 billion in grid improvements under consideration last year, regulators approved only $3.4 billion, according to a national survey by the NC Clean Energy Technology Center, about 1/5. Here we go. After a weather disaster, everyone's standing around saying, quote, "Why didn't you spend more to keep the lights on?" Ted Thomas, chairman of Arkansas Public Service Commission, said in an interview with the Washington Post. But when you try to spend more when the system is working, it's a tough sell. A major impediment is the failure by state regulators and the utility industry to consider the consequences of a more volatile climate and to come up with better tools to prepare for it. The failure by state regulators and the utility industry to consider the consequences of a more volatile climate. And let me guess, just because we drive gas cars and eat hamburgers, it's our fault? Or is it the fault of all of these, mega corporations that they've built up, and totally, if they did cause anything, if mankind caused any kind of damage to the earth without any kind of interference by any nefarious parties, it would be them. Way, it's not even close. Do you have giant plants that just blow out black smoke all over the place? No. Do I? No. Do they? Of course. All over the world. We live in a country that conquers nations for oil. And they're trying to sell you that they care about the climate. Come on, get real. When are you going to wake up? Those of us that are already awake, I've been up for a while, and I can tell you that you need to get up right now because it's already way past time. Way past time. So anyway, blaming the state regulators and the utility industry to consider the consequences of a more volatile climate. Also, what this does is it gets people mad at their individual states or their country as a whole, as in nation states, because you got to get rid of these state regulators, the petty laws and useless officials, right? Got to get rid of it. Georgia Guidestones, come on. This is Bush League. Okay, a Berkeley lab study last year of outages caused by major weather events in 6 states found that neither state officials nor utility executives tended to calculate the social and economic costs of longer and more frequent outages, such as food spoilage, business closures, supply chain disruptions, and medical problems. Huh. Well, we already got the supply chain disruptions, the medical problems, the business closures, the food. We have all these, actually. And it'll make it worse if the grid starts going down. This is how they tell you. This is how they tell you right here. That power is just going to start failing in all these different places. They don't say where. They never will. Only on some localized area. But it'll be one of those random things like, oh, mega tornado just wiped out the state of Montana. It won't be that extreme, but it'll be, you guys know what I'm saying. But no, this is what they're doing. They're selling the whole reset. This is what this is. Quote, there is no question that climatic changes are happening that directly affect the operation of the power grid, said Justin Goonlock, a senior attorney at the Institute for Policy Integrity, a think tank at New York University Law School. What you still haven't seen is a state commission saying, isn't climate the through line of all of this? Let's examine it in an open-ended way. Let's figure out where the information takes us and make some decisions. Okay, in interviews, several state commissioners acknowledged that failure. And our electric grid was not built to handle the storms that are coming this next century. Wait a minute. How does this guy, Tremaine Phillips, commissioner of the Michigan Public Service Commission, how does he know what the storms are going to be like in the next century? Do you know what storms are going to be like next year? No, not unless you had some kind of knowledge of some wrongdoing. Mankind can't predict storms that are going to be crazy and intensified in the next century. And they can't sit there and blame this climate change because it has been totally destroyed, completely destroyed, the whole narrative. So this guy apparently is a super meteorologist that can predict storms in the next century, so we'll just go with that. We need to come up with a broader set of metrics in order to better understand the success of future improvements. The need is especially urgent in North Carolina, a state that has declared a federal disaster from hurricane or tropical storm 5 times in the past 4 years. Among them was Hurricane Florence, which brought torrential rain, catastrophic flooding, and the state's worst outage in over a decade in September 2018. And they dragged their feet to get the power turned back on. They could fortify it the way it is now, but they just won't. And they go on about people that were left disconnected from refrigerators, air conditioners, ventilators, other essential machines. Up to 2 weeks, elderly residents dependent on oxygen were evacuated from nursing homes. Relief teams flew medical supplies to hospitals cut off by flooded roads. Desperate people facing closed stores and rotting food looted a Wilmington Family Dollar. And this person, a community organizer, Evelyn Bryant, who took part in the Wilmington response, quote, I have PTSD from Hurricane Florence, not because of the actual storm, but the aftermath. Think about this. They intensify all of these storms. It is proven in the trajectory, the way that the jet stream moves in general, the way that the ionosphere is moving on the radar, the way that God don't make 90-degree angles. That's like as cut and dry as you could put it on the surface. And you can see these things if you know what you're looking for. And many officials and many people in academia and business have spoken of weather modification. Kennedy was talking about weather modification. This is what they do. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, any kind of storm, they can intensify it with frequencies. They have mastered the trade, you could say. So, it's problem, reaction, solution. It's problem, reaction, solution. It's create the problem, reaction, this. We're in the reaction stage right now, where they're trying to give you their solution, which is, of course, all roads lead back, New World Order. The storm reignited debate over a $13 billion proposal by Duke Energy, one of the largest power companies in the nation, to reinforce the state's power grid. A few months earlier, the state had rejected Duke's request for full repayment of those costs, determining that it's protecting the grid against weather as a normal part of doing business and not eligible for a type of reimbursement the company had sought. Yeah, so that's what the state did. They're making the state look bad, so people want to get rid of the state and bring in the all-powerful world government. It's a really good plan. You got to give it to them. They'll fail, but ready for this? After Florence, Duke offered a smaller $2.5 billion plan, along with the argument that severe weather events are one of 7 megatrends, including cyber threats and population growth, that require greater investment, according to a PowerPoint presentation included in testimony to the state. Cyber threats and population growth. And severe weather are some of 7 mega trends. So these are probably the things that they're going to be, focusing on, using, and or, as they put it requires greater investment. Bill Gates knows all about the greater investment in the population growth now, don't he? This is literally how you dissect propaganda. It's not hard to do. The company owns the 2 largest utilities in North Carolina, Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress. Despite growing investments by utilities, power grids remain fragile. Of course they do, because that's the point. Vote Solar, a non-profit climate advocacy group, objected to Duke's plan, saying the utility had failed to study the risk of climate impacts. Duke's flood maps, for example, had not been updated to reflect the latest projections for sea level rise. They said in a testimony, Vote Solar claimed Duke was using environmental trends to justify investments it had already decided to pursue. And then they talk about the United States is one of the few countries where regulated utilities are usually guaranteed a rate of return on capital investments. That business model incentivizes spending regardless of how well it solves problems for customers and inspires skepticism. Rick O'Connell, executive director of Grid Lab, a nonprofit group that assists state and regional policymakers on electrical grid issues, said utilities in many states are waving their hands and saying hurricanes to justify spending that will do little to improve climate resilience. And they just keep going on about the climate risk study, and we really don't need to see their narrative because that's all this is. They're basically just saying power companies, bad. Nation state, bad. World government, good. Freedom, bad. Now think about this. And they're talking about how it costs way too much money to do all of these proposals that people want with the running the lines underground and this and that. Like, no, it can be done. It doesn't cost too much. It's the fact that they don't want to allocate that money there because they allocate most of it into their pockets and or the military to continue to dominate the world, to make it all part of New World Order, while leaving as many people as they can, left in the dust. And check this out. Talking about wildfires, 2018 Camp Fire killed 85 people. Was 8 plus 5. Come on. And I think that's pretty much... Look at this. In Texas, where officials have largely abandoned state regulation in favor of the free market, the results have been no more encouraging. Without requirements as exist elsewhere for building extra capacity for times of high demand or stress, the state was ill-equipped to handle an abnormal deep freeze in February that knocked out power to 4 million customers for days. So you see how this is going to work? They're going to say, they are saying, states, countries, and all of that, they're not capable of coming together and they're not capable of tackling these modern challenges. We need a new government, an upgraded United Nations. We need this right here. This is what they need. Oh, wait, they already have it lined up. Our Common Agenda report of the Secretary General. And we already went through all this stuff. We already went through the reinvigorating multilateralism. I'm going to read this again tomorrow on the video. We went through all this, but look this. Leave no one behind. Protect our planet. Promote peace and prevent conflicts. Abide by international law and ensure justice. Place women and girls at the center. Build trust. Improve digital cooperation. Upgrade the United Nations. Ensure sustainable financing. Boost partnerships. Listen to and work with the youth. Be prepared. And if you go down here, it talks about we the peoples. Artificial intelligence enabled worldwide digital consultations. Following up from UN 75 global dialogues to gather inputs, galvanize networks, innovate bold ideas, activate champions to achieve our common agenda priorities. Activate champions. They tell you what they're doing. This is what they're doing. The power is going to start going out in a lot of places. This is the dark winter that we have been warned about. And this just lends more credence to that fact that this is, in fact, going to be the dark winter because they need to get this done. They need to get this reset to go through. They have no other choice. They're all or nothing right now. God bless all of you, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good night.